Be closing there, Arnie. All right. Is Arnie our last speaker, Emily?
He is.
I'm the closer, baby. I'm the closer.
Oh, you are the closer. Let's see. There are 119 participants right now. Your job is to make sure there's 119 participants, however long you have here, an hour and 20.
Hey, special shout out to Matt Hill, who signed up for Better Book Club during that commercial just a few minutes ago. Matt Hill, Human Capital View, you win.
Dude, Better Book Club's been something. I remember us sitting in your office upstairs at the old CJ place talking about, hey, we use this thing internally, we created it internally, and we're like, oh, why don't we figure out how to take this thing to the world? It was like this silly little idea. I think we might have been drinking a little bit, but here a few years later, it's this thing that's affecting people's lives all over the place. So congratulations on that success. And then you got your book, which I want you to talk about a little bit. And Arnie is one of my dearest friends. He's a forum member of mine. If you guys are in EO, you understand what that means. I've known Arnie for a ton of years. Petra has worked with Arnie's organizations over that time period. Arnie's had a lot of influence on me personally, as well as the business itself. He's a friend of Petra's, a dear friend of mine. And he's got a book called Worth Doing Wrong, because there it is. He's really good at this, by the way. He's better than Denny at magic. Just watch him from time to time. I want to get out of your way. I want you to talk a little bit about CJ and the success that you had with CJ and the multiple lines of business that you had during that time period. Some of the things that you learned, but he's a key guy around the word culture, right? And it's kind of like strategy. We talked to Kahan earlier about strategy. What does that actually mean? And he kind of decodes it in a way, especially inside of his book, with very practical ways to create a very strong culture. And I watched him go through all of that in his business as he scaled it at the exact same time. So Arnie, I'm going to just get out of the way, man, and give you the floor, and I'll be in the background if you want me to jump in and do anything. Okay.
I may need you. I'm like you. I'm so fired up. I have so many things I want to talk about, and only 3 hours to do it. And so I'm going to try to cram it all in to seriously about 35, 40 minutes. That just gives you some takeaways, gives everybody some opportunity. First, on Better Book Club, 3 things have changed from the time John has transitioned from his old company to his new company. One is inflation. Highly recommend we up those payouts to $100 per book is our best practices for most clubs. We have no issue with making it. You can earn up to $100 per quarter, but by raising the price per book, we get more first readers than we do regular readers. We don't mind rewarding people who already read. We really want to start people on the habit of reading. So number 1, inflation. Number 2, automation. Now rewards in Better Book Club are automatic. You read the book, your report is approved, you get your reward instantly, which is a cool new feature. And 3, the meeting has become optional. Tons of value come from meetings. 9 people around a table talking about 9 different books, getting to know each other. It's awesome. But in the post-COVID world, that means become optional. And so all that's changed, and we continue to rock this thing forward and get people into the habit of reading. It's not the book, it's the habit. That's the end of that commercial break. I want to, Andy, you are currently marking 324 books read. You've probably read more in your life, but that's what you've recorded in Better Book Club. Thanks for keeping up your profile and keeping active. I'm at 254. I don't know if I'll ever catch Andy. And it's not winner take all, right? It is not a zero-sum game. I can read, you can read, we can all read, we can all grow together.
Well, none of us are going to catch John Spence.
Yeah, John's at 1,200 plus and is going strong. He just sleeps. He puts the books under his pillow and wakes up the next morning, and somehow he's read them. I just wrote a note to myself. I have no idea what it means, so I'll move on. Hey, let's talk about culture. The number 1 question I get about culture is, how do you start? How do you start? And that question on this call is a little bit not perfect, because all of you are so advanced in terms of where you are along the sort of business continuum. And I know that you've all started, but we're going to start there. And I'm going to run through just sort of a basic framework, because I believe within that framework, there's things that A, you can improve upon, and B, Andy will be able to interrupt me and keep me to expand more on some topics that need expanded on, and also move on if I'm boring in going down the wrong track. The number one place to start, in my opinion, is to name your culture. Everyone on this call is working in an organization, and you have a culture. And by the way, it's the culture you deserve, because it's the culture you have right now. All kinds of reasons for it to become better and better, but you have a culture. Let's name that culture. And everyone wants to come up with the perfect name. You don't need the perfect name. You just need a name. Ours was called Camel Culture because people called me Camel Jockey when I was growing up because of my extraordinary Lebanese heritage, where there are no camels, by the way, but I am Arabic. Anyway, your company has a culture. I've been collecting names of cultures from around the country. And one thing I figured out is no one has the perfect culture name. I've got Culture Bee, Rabbit Wisdom, Ace Culture, Fin Culture, Free Culture, Hedgehog Culture, Litco Culture, Salad Culture, Ohana Culture. Like, none of these pop off the board as the perfect name, but they're the perfect name for the cultures they represent because they mean something to the company and the people there. And so I want you to, the first step is name your culture. Have a contest. Think about your past. Bring in experts if you have to. But with a name, it begins the journey. Now, what do you do after a name? The step is to stop at that point and identify everything you're doing in your company right now that you consider part of your culture. Most people don't stop and document this, but you're doing things now that set you aside. If I came and visited your company physically or virtually, I would start to notice things about your culture. I would notice the way the physical location looks. I would notice how you answer the phone. I would notice whether it's a place with a sense of humor or if it's very serious. If it's quiet or is it rambunctious? Are you a little bit of a rebel, or do you follow the rules? There's all kinds of things that start to define your culture today. And what we want to do is start identifying those things. Everything that you can identify can also be named, and it can also be put on a scale. We want to measure these things and say, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much is this thing that's a part of your culture helping you support your core values? On a scale from 1 to 10, this thing you do, how is it supporting your core values? And on a scale from 1 to 10, how is it leading you towards your BHAG, right? And if you rated every program, Better Book Club is a great example of a cultural program. We paid our people to lead so that we can make them better human beings. It tied perfectly into our core values, which was growth and also optimism and confidence, by the way. And it helped us towards our BHAG because we knew we couldn't grow our business without growing our people. And to reach our BHAG, we had to have the best and brightest in their fields. And so it also helped us reach our BHAG. And so we could score those things both very high, whereas a ping pong table in the office for us might be fun, right? And if one of our core values was fun, it might rate high, but that wasn't one of our core values. So it was hard to rate a ping pong table in our business high in terms of helping us with our core values. And it was also high for us to rank it high on reaching our BHAG. In that case, not for you, but for us, those would have been low scores. So if you think about the constant mother of all process, it's the graphing something with 4 quadrants. Things in the upper right quadrant we keep, things in the lower left quadrant we lose. Everything else we have to work either up or to the right so that we know that we want to value it. So you have programs within your organization. Rate them in terms of how they help you reach your core values. Rate them in terms of how they help you reach your BHAG, and decide what quadrant do they belong in. And from there, you'll start to see what things need support and help and nurturing, and what things you need to get out of your way. Earlier, Jennifer was talking about meetings that don't bring value to you and your organization. And the best thing to do is to get rid of them, combine them with other things. find another way to accomplish what you think that meeting is accomplishing because they're in your way. Same thing with programs that are pulling energy from your team and your company and even yourself. Let's name your culture. Let's identify the things that you're already doing with you and your organization. Let's rate them in terms of how they're supporting you. And that gives us a great basis to start improving the ones, keeping the ones, nurturing the ones that we want to keep. I know I'm yelling at this point and blabbering a lot, so stop me if I need to, but I'm very passionate, as you can tell. Okay. So what do you do with a program that you definitely want to keep and nurture? Here's how we did it. Number one, assign a champion. Assign a champion. And if the owner of the company says, I'm the champion of that program, we know for certain it will fail, because things that are important to owners are typically important to owners for a short time. And then they move to the side of the desk and then they fall off the desk. The key for most programs is to get them in the hands of a champion who is not at the upper end of the org chart, but who is on the org chart and has a opportunity to show the organization what they can do. Our best cultural programs, our Better Book Club, our morale survey, our thank you program, our birthday program, our kid-friendly and dog-friendly workplace program, every one of them had a champion from below the midpoint on the org chart. And that champion was responsible for keeping that program moving extremely forward. Okay. That champion needs a checklist. They need a checklist so that they can document what's working, what they have to do daily, monthly, weekly, quarterly. What are the things that went right? What are the things that went wrong? And so that they can then, if they have a life event, they can pass that program to someone else with very little fall off, because they've constantly been able to adjust the checklist to make the program better and better. And then the next person has an opportunity to continue that journey. So as you identify these programs that are good for your company, give them their best chance of success by giving them a champion, right? And so that champion then develops a checklist. And then most importantly, they need permission from you, meaning the leader, or you, meaning the teammate, permission to fail, permission rather to get it wrong on their way to getting it right. If Andy and I both ran a program in any organization, we would both end up, I predict, getting it right, but we would both go about it in different ways. We would learn different lessons along the way. We would find different ways to make it successful for the program and the people around us. But we have to have permission from everyone in the organization to do that. If we give that person a checklist and permission, then they have the freedom to turn that program into success for themselves, the team, and the organization. So we name the culture, we identify the ones that are going well, we give those, we rate them so that we know, we give them a champion, we give them permission to fail. And we give that program KPIs to judge it by. KPIs to know if that program is moving in the right direction. How many people are engaged in the program? How many, in Better Book Club's case, books are being read per blank? In our morale survey, what's our participation level? How many people are participating every month? In our birthday program, how many birthday cards are being sent out to family members every month? In our thank you program, how many people are we recognizing every month? It's like every program has KPIs. I'm pulling the low hanging fruit, but if you have a program and there's no way to measure it, you might not have a program. And so we have to identify the KPIs, and those KPIs have to be listed somewhere, whether in the old world in physical space or in the new world in virtual space. We have to share the KPIs, not just with a few, but with everyone, Arnie, so that everyone knows how the program's going. Andy.
This was an area that I was always like dumbfounded with how you did what you just said. Like if you ever went to Arnie's old offices, which have long been sold off and moved and everything else at this point, And I wish that we had like video of that. There probably is some information somewhere. But when you walked in there was these gigantic damn blue boards that had pieces of paper tacked to them that measured absolutely everything that was happening in those businesses. And he had several different companies that he was working under one roof. But you measured everything, and everybody saw what those dashboards said.
And
it worked.
It worked because, and on every piece of paper, Andy, in the bottom right-hand corner was the champion's name and the date that information was last updated. So you never looked at the board and said, oh, this has been here for a year. This is outdated. Or if you did, I would take the piece of paper off. This is back in the physical world. I know it's a little different now, post-COVID. I would take the piece of paper off and I would go to the person whose name was on the paper and say, why is this not updated? Right? And so that didn't happen very often, because if you did it once, it almost never happened again. But so I micromanaged in that way, is by giving people responsibility and giving them room to create their opportunities. That was my best micromanagement, but it worked because all those numbers became visual to everybody. The other thing that was a cool effect, if you have 8 different champions, and please do not make one person the champion of all your programs. That's as fast of a death wish as given to the owner or leader of the company. It's just not going to happen. But by having 8 different champions run 8 different programs in your organization, the effect is those 8 people help each other, right? And trust me, the team, most of your team wants those people to be successful, probably more than they want you to be successful, right? Because they're their teammates, and so they support each other. Great champions come from within the organization. They support each other, and you hold them, that dirty word or perfect word known as accountable. You hold them accountable by the KPIs, right? We have programs that we know are up and to the right. They help our BHAG. They help our core values. They're run by someone in the organization who wants to prove themselves. By not giving these programs to people in the organization, we are robbing them of that opportunity to show the rest of the company what they can do with the program. And so we're given that is the company's gift to the individual is the chance to be successful with the program. Their gift back is a successful program. And so it's a win-win for everyone. As we watch those KPIs, we can then take all with the progress. And with every program, there's a beginning, and then there are the milestones that we measure its judgment by. And I've preached with Petra a long time about the importance of milestones, the importance of keeping up with the 100th time something happens, the 1,000th time something happens, the 10,000th person that whose life is made better because of the program. All these milestones become the story, may I say, the legendary story of any program, which becomes the legendary story of any culture, which becomes the legendary story of your company. And that's the success that these simple tools and rhythms can get you, is the legendary status you need to become the brand you are, to affect the change you want to make. And so that's the opportunity. Andy, I'm going to take a breath. Any questions from that just blah of information while I go to possibly next topic?
Anybody have any questions? You can roll those in, stick them in the chat. I haven't seen any questions. There's a lot of comments happening. Mm-hmm. Most of them are actually positive about you, Arnie.
That's shocking.
I know.
As we both know.
Well, it's not over yet. You still have an opportunity to get some negative.
That's something I will put my foot in my mouth at some point during this.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be a great day without that.
There
you go. Can you suggest some other successful programs?
Well, what I can tell you is my history with programs, right? That met our culture, our values, our BHAG and stuff. But one of the simplest things we did was simply send the children of our team members birthday cards with money inside. And I know, money is not the answer to everything, but when you have a family member of one of your teammates physically open a card that has a gift certificate in it in front of his, like, positive stories come from that help with retention of your talent, with help with appreciation, with help of people feeling respected one of our core values by the organization. And so just, it's a simple program. It's a rounding error on most of your financial statements, but it makes a huge impact to have positive stories happen inside the company. The other really simple thing we did every time a new team member started with us, we hand them a stack, and I think many of you do this, a stack of thank you and appreciation cards. And we say, your job is to give these out in the next 90 days. Like you have to give these out in the next 90 days, which creates the habit of thanking the teammates around them for being great teammates. And so just that culture of appreciation starts to develop. So it's things like that. It's the simplest of things, easy to measure, easy to understand. You walk through the office and you see thank you cards everywhere. You know something's working. And don't get caught up with, well, we're not in the office anymore, we can't do that anymore. There's always a way. We can virtually figure out how to thank people, right, in a different way. And we can even count. There's Kudos, the company called Kudos. That's all they do is help you thank each other across the universe. So things like that. There's always a program that aligns with your values and your BHAG that, by the way, helps you build better humans within your company, which then those humans help you build a better company. What a concept.
And I'll tell you too, and just put the link to Arnie's book in chat. All the programs are in detail with like pictures and images and everything in his book. You just need to go buy his damn book. So that'll be one thing. There is a question still vague on the use of milestones to celebrate progress, I think. How do you make those legendary?
Well, what we did is at the end of every year, we would survey our team and say, what great happened in the last year? Like, what things do we want to look back in 4 years and go, holy cow, that happened that year. We crossed the 100th this or the 1000th that, or we finally got that digital studio, or we finally got, higher speed internet. If it's important to your team, then it's probably important to your business. And then we collect those, and then we would make sure there's no duplicates, and we would sort through them. And then we'd put it back out there. And we let the team vote on the top 10 things that happened in our company that year. And then once we got those top 10, we would make a poster and we would put it in our lobby, and we'd list the top 10 things. And then we'd surround it by all the little things that not everyone noticed, but someone noticed. And it was a way for us to tell our story when we had visitors, whether they be vendors or potential clients or family members from our team, which also wanted to hear our story, or just people there for a tour. You've heard me say to this audience before, if you can't give a tour, you might not have the culture you want. Be able to give a tour, virtually or physically, of who you are as an organization and what makes you unique. And milestones make you unique. They're part of your story. Your business it starts accomplishing milestones, and that becomes your legendary story.
Yeah, and I remember being in that lobby, and there's like 10 years of these plaques up on the wall with the milestones on them, and you just stand there and stare at them over a period of time. So I'm getting a lot of feedback about your energy. Can you be a little more energetic as we move forward?
Come on. It's the afternoon. I know it's hard. I'm so appreciative that there's this many. Are we down to like 6 people now?
No, you hadn't lost a single soul.
Like, I'm so excited to have this. Like, I can't get my kids to listen to me. Well, they're older now, but still, they don't, it's like I get 10 minutes. So I appreciate
it. Keep going,
brother. All right. So build a history, two-way communication. I'm going to try to wrap up. I don't know what we got left.
I think you've got 55 minutes.
Oh, I was trying to do this faster. Okay, we'll have some time for Q&A, or we send everybody away. Let me just talk about two-way communication. Two-way communication. So often we all do in our companies exactly what I'm doing right now is talk. These are our values. This is what we're trying to get done. This is our BHAG. This is what we're supposed to be doing. These are our clients. This is what's happening. This is what we did wrong. We tell. And what I had to learn after about 10 years of being the boss and telling people what to do is I had to learn to be a leader and start listening. And there are everyone does this differently. If you're small enough, it's as simple as sitting down with folks on a regular schedule, on purpose basis, right? Not like every Tuesday at 2, but on a regular rhythm of meetings with people, and ask 2 very simple questions. What are we doing right? What could we be doing better? And shut up and listen for what your team will tell you. We get caught up in strategic planning all the time, and we want to see things from 30,000 feet all the time. Well, strategically, I want to see it from 30,000 feet so I understand where we're going and what's in front of us. Every once in a while, we need to get on the front row and see what's right in front of us. What are our customer service people seeing? What experience are our people having when they enter the office or the work environment that we've created for them? What are they hearing on their feedback calls? What things are stumbling in front of them that it's your job to get out of the way? And if you don't have a system to pull this information forward, we were at 225, 230 people, so I could not go have that conversation with everybody. But what we could do was do a monthly survey that said, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best culture environment you can imagine and 1 being the worst, how do we rate as a company right now, and why? And that's a different question than what are we doing right or what can we do better. But that why was magical in pulling out things that made us a 10 so that we could pat ourselves on the back and do more of it, and things that made us a 3 or a 5 or a 6 or a 4 so that we understood what we had done wrong as a leadership team. What had we not explained? What could we improve upon? What do we need to reinforce more? What do we need to add assets to? And for us, it ranged from everything to have we defined success for the right positions, to what kind of toilet paper was in our bathrooms. But all the feedback allowed us to constantly get better. And if we don't create the two-way conversation, if we would have never done that, we would have continued down a trail to a bad destination. I'm a firm believer that we have to have a 30,000 foot view, but every once in a while, I got my very best, well, not just once in a while, very often, I got my very best information from my intake specialists who were taking calls on the front line, from my front desk receptionist who was dealing with all our incoming traffic, from our photographers who were out shooting commercials for us and telling us what they heard behind the scenes when we weren't looking. Like, our very best insight, the good stuff, the behind enemy line stuff came from the front line. And if we don't create two-way communications for our companies to pull that information up to the boardroom, or whatever you consider the boardroom, then you're flying blind. You're flying absolutely blind. And this took, like, my career was a 20-year sort of building business career. In like year 17, we finally figured out that we would pull the information up, but we didn't know what it meant. So it took us that long to figure out to go back and pull our frontline people into the boardroom meeting so they could explain to us what the hell was going on, right? Because we drew the wrong conclusions. We took the information and put it through our 30,000 foot head, and we didn't understand it, but the front line understood it, and the front line could explain it to us. And everyone, it was a win-win. Everyone won. Our clients won. They won. We won. The business got better because we created the two-way communication, because we were willing to listen, because we were willing to take responsibility. These are the little acts of opportunity that can trip up so many businesses, because they're either not listening, or they're not understanding, or they're not willing to do anything about it. If you're not willing to change your toilet paper for the sake of your people, you may need to think about it.
Hey, I'm going to stop you because I want you to something I learned from Arnie a long time ago is don't solve for the 1%, right? So you said that since I've known you. Don't solve for the 1%. And even today, I walk around the planet and I watch teams all the time. They take this thing happened one time, and they'll go spend 82 hours attempting to fix this one thing that might happen once a year, maybe, or once every decade, maybe. And toilet paper is what comes to mind when you need you to tell that story to reinforce that particular lesson.
Well, I hope I have the same story you're thinking about, but it's very simple. Like, remind me if I don't tell the right story. But in our world, someone commented in some comment somewhere that our toilet paper wasn't very good, and I thought, they're right. Like, we're using commercial grade toilet paper. We should be using Charmin. So we and you can't get Charmin, by the way, from like your normal supply places. You got to make other arrangements. And so we became a Charmin house. And as silly as that sounds, that's how far we're willing to go for our people. And because we were, then I felt always confident that people were just a little more willing to go that far for us.
And yet still somebody.
Oh yeah. Yes. So we put on new Charmin. We were so proud of ourselves. We thought we'd done, I forgot, Andy, sorry. We were so proud of ourselves. I can't throw the picture up, but then like the next morning we came up and like three of our stalls are like just full of Charmin. And it was basically a team member saying, you can take your Charmin, but I still don't like my job. And that's part of the things you get, right? You go, that's okay. Every once in a while, what you're doing doesn't work for everybody, but if it works for the majority, 80% or more, you're in great shape. And the other place I'll go with that, Andy, is that it was about year 15 in my business that we figured out that we didn't need a policy manual. We just needed guidelines. And it's really the same thing. We as entrepreneurs and as businesses, when things go wrong, we make a rule so that it might not ever possibly go wrong in some distant point in the future. And we end up with all these rules in our policy manual. We ended up with more rules in our policy manual than we had people following them or not following them. It was absolutely ridiculous. And so we were able to shred the entire policy manual and replace all those rules for the few that occasionally get things wrong with guidelines for the many, so that people just had guidelines and not rules. That means they could use their own decision-making skills. They could make their own assertions in terms of how to dress and when to come to work and how to support their team, that we weren't telling them every little thing to do. And our guidelines could be put out on single sheets of paper for people to understand and interpret, as opposed to buried in a policy manual. And so this whole concept of every time somebody does something wrong, a rule, or what the feedback I get on Better Book Club, how do I know if they read the book? If you're worried about whether or not they read the book, you got a whole different problem going on in your organization, right? If they're filling out the report just to get a few books for reading a book they didn't read, they may do it once, hell, they may do it twice, but that's not a sustaining person in a culture that is legendary. That is just a part of the price you pay on the road of life as you go through. And so, transparency with your information, trust with your people, grow your people so they can grow your business. Those are the concepts that I talk about and had to learn after 10 years of doing it wrong, after 10 years of pushing a wagon with rocks up a hill, trying to boss my people around. It was that point in which I finally figured out it's not about how hard I push. It's about how well we as it can lead. And boy, once that bus got going downhill, the momentum was tremendous.
And Greg just posted in chat the resources page on your website, which has in your old office, you literally walked in and there was like 5 things on the wall, and every one of them was one piece of paper. And you had one that was like all the legal shit you had to do.
Yeah.
And then the others were,
there's always this legal thing that you argue, but they won't let you stop. So you just separate that.
And you've got examples on your website. You guys can click on that and go check it out. But those are all examples of how he took, this resource of a guide or a bunch of policy bullshit and turned it into, hey, look, this is the guidelines and standards by which we live. Just do this and we'll be fine. And that whole concept of some will, some won't, so what? And just getting past it. Quit solving for the 1%. I've been saying this to people ever since I heard it from you, Arnie.
And so Andy, a lot of people are hearing this and they're going, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You're not. Just calm down. I know I'm excited. I know I have a lot of energy, but you got to calm down. You have permission from Andy and I to go do one thing a quarter. And to even do that one thing a quarter, you have to assign a champion. You have to work on help them work, or assign them to work on a checklist, and you have to give them permission to get it wrong on their way to get it right. But if you do more than one thing a quarter, your chances of success continue to go down. I didn't say that all of a sudden I woke up one day and we had the perfect culture. Andy's known me for his entire period of time, and he knows that's not true. What I did say is I woke up one day and I said, I want a better culture. I had the culture I deserved, by the way. I had a culture where I was mad at my team. I was mad at my vendors. I was mad at my clients. I was mad at the industry. I was mad especially at myself, because I just basically painted myself into a corner. And what I had to learn to do was one thing at a time, one program that got me closer, not to the culture I had, but the culture I wanted, the place I wanted to come to work, the place that people that I could claim was a remarkable place to work because people remarked about it all the time. And that was the goal, that to have it. We're in an industry that no one wanted to be in. We're advertising for personal injury lawyers. We're making lawyers in each town be more popular and more liked. Like, that's a hard area to recruit in. What I had to have was a culture where people loved to come and work. They felt respect from their team and their teammates. They felt respect for the work they did. They felt that it was an environment that they enjoyed being in. That's what we created. That was a culture by design and not one just by default. But the key is one program at a time. Give every program you put in place 9 months to take root. Because if you go in there and start messing with that thing before 9 months, the roots are going to be weak. It's not going to be solid. It's going to get ripped right out of there. And all of a sudden, it's going to be a program you thought you started, but you never really did. Not 9 days, not 9 weeks, 9 months to establish a program that's going to live in your culture, that you're going to name, that's going to have a champion, a checklist, and permission to go wrong on its way to being right. That's the magic formula for getting a culture on track, is that it happens gradually and then all of a sudden with your support.
I think that's a really good, and Taylor put this in there. It's a great reminder. We do what we do, right? So a lot of the folks on the call we work with all the time. And, the challenge that we have is everybody wants to go fast. Like, we want to do this and we want to do this. And I'm like, shit, man, slow down. Like, you don't need to be even thinking about that. That's why when we lay out a roadmap, it's anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get all of this stuff really ingrained in the business. And sometimes I'll just look at somebody and say, hey, how long have you been in business? 25 years. Well, it took you 25 years to screw it up. We ain't fixing it in 3 months. It's going to take some time.
That's right.
To get this thing back to where it needs to be and moving in the right direction.
And the best way there is 20 miles at a time, Andy, right? Just like in the book, 20 miles at a time, not 30, not 100, more than 10. We got to go 20 miles today.
If you're I'm sure Greg's already Googling that, so he can put the link in there. Just go ahead, Greg, 20-mile march, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. What's next on the board over there on the right-hand side that I can't see? Your next topic. Yeah.
No, that's all I have for today. I didn't think I'd get through that, and I appreciate everybody putting up my crazy. I got no more. I do. Let me put a bookend around this. Better Book Club, betterbookclub.com. Recognize and reward your people for reading on a regular basis, and they will read more. We'll get more books in brains. We are making fantastic progress with this initiative. And we think about the first, if you're a reader, think about the first 2 or 3 books you read in your life and how much impact those books had on you, probably more than the last 20 you've read. That's the gift that Better Book Club gives to your entire organization. It is not to get people who read 20 books a year to read 30. People who read are going to read. The magic of Better Book Club is getting everyone in your organization into the habit of reading. And as they become better humans, as you did when you read your first books, they'll become better team members and you'll become a better company. Betterbookclub.com.
Did we get that recorded? Hey, I'm not going to let you go just yet. And the link for book club is in chat. Somebody said, I pay my kids $15 for every book they read for the last 2 years. My older son takes full advantage of this benefit, by the way. So works at home too, do the exact same thing at home. Before you leave, I want you to unpack for this group, because you did this at a level deeper than anyone I've ever seen do this. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a second. But, inside of a line, you're familiar with a line and what all it does. Your companies have always used it. There's the EMPS survey, right? So you go out and you gather information and, you get that and you can respond to it anonymously and all that kind of thing. Arnie took that to a special place where he not only published all the results internally, but he published them externally on the website. You could probably go to the website.
They've taken it down.
They did. And he sold the company. They took it down. Yeah. But every comment, as long as it wasn't disparaging to someone else in the business, went up on the website. So to just talk about, and I think you call it the dark arts of the surveys, and the one thing around not ever reading them by yourself in a dark room with whiskey or something. Just, can you go through that real quick?
Well, I guess step one is, if you ask, don't be shocked by the answer. I always enjoy, like, whenever there's a personality test that comes out, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to take the personality test. I want to take the personality test. I can't wait. And I fill it out and I get it back. And I'm so excited until it tells me I'm a raving lunatic. And then I'm like, come on, I didn't want to, that's a stupid survey, right? But it happens regularly, by the way. I know you're shocked. So same thing though with morale survey, or the way we ran morale survey, or what you're doing with EM, what is it called? Yeah, your version. Don't be shocked that you get some stuff back that you don't agree with. But guess what? It's still the feedback. And it's still your responsibility as a leader to read the feedback, never alone, because it's much harder alone, with a team that takes the responsibility for turning that feedback into opportunity. What have we, if someone is upset, there's a chance they're the 1%er and they're just upset, or you don't understand the problem. There's nothing you can do. There's a chance of that. But there's a much bigger chance that they have a point. And especially if you start seeing the same response multiple times. If we're as business, as humans, one of our best assets is to be able to spot trends, to be able to see what's going on, pattern recognition, if you will. If you start to see a pattern, it's probably not them, it's you, it's the organization. How you put people around the table who listen with the intent to improve, to be better, to listen more, to tell more, to explain more, to think more. Like, it was always stuff we forgot to tell them, or forgot to ask our team, or forgot to preview the team on. We surprised them with change that they weren't ready for yet. It almost always was something we could do better as leadership, and rarely a situation where people are just upset. When people are upset, the reason we developed this whole concept is when people are upset, they talk at the proverbial water cooler, and that talk festers and it gets out of control before anyone can do anything about it. What morale survey did for us was it bubbled up that information soon enough for us to do something about it. And you can't walk away from that gift. You have to act upon it, or at least try to act on it, so that those opportunities stay opportunities and not problems. I may have went off course there, Andy, but we used it monthly and we published it to hold ourselves accountable for the mindset I just tried to describe.
Awesome. Hey, let's get some questions coming in. If there's any questions about anything, most of you have looked at the website at this point and poked around, I'm sure, since a lot of those links were in here. Is there anything you saw on the website? Kathy, you got anything you want to ask this guy? I can see you smiling through all this stuff.
Ask about Better Book Club.
Kathy's brand new to Petra, by the way, right?
Yes, I'm brand new. I took lots of notes. I thought everything that you said was important, so I had to decide what to write down. But
hey, Kathy, if you like my brand of crazy, you can listen to my book at like 125, and I sound just like this, and I talk real fast, and it's really cool. But I'll go over everything a whole lot, and you'll hear it all again, and it'll be great until it's not.
Well, I'm excited to talk to my group about this at work. So
well,
we're always thinking about how to make our lives better at work and for our customers. So I think the Better Book Club might work.
Well, we hope it does. You know, culture can get a bad name because people, if you just go out and ask random people about culture, it becomes, ping pong tables and beer in the lunchroom and things like that. And those can be a part of great cultures. If it helps with your culture, if it helps with your core values, it helps with your BAG, those things can do. But just to have them randomly, it's like eating potato chips. It's just it may be okay for a minute, but it's not going to be long lasting.
Totally agree.
I've never heard you say it's just like eating potato chips, but
this stuff just comes to me, Andy. I don't know. Where it comes from.
So what was the question you asked in your morale survey?
On a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best place you can imagine working and 1 being the worst, how does CJ rate right now?
So CJ was CJ Advertising, his
right. How do we rate right now?
The core business.
Right. And then the same thing for legal intake and for MLG when we were running that. So it's basically just on a scale from 1 to 10, how are we doing? And then the number is important. but the why. And don't, when people would say, I love blank, we post that too. When we release the information back out to everyone in the company sees everyone's comments even before it goes public. But it's because we need a pat on the back for the good things we do, right? And those positive comments provided that, and the negative ones gave us the opportunities to work on. But that was the question.
Anybody else? You got Arnie here he's got another 10 minutes we can fill. So is there anybody else have any questions, any comments? Taylor Brown?
Maybe you can raise his hand.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Arnie. First of all, you're brilliant. I love it. I love the enthusiasm. Absolutely top drawer, mate, top drawer. But a question again around about EMPS, because this is boggling us in our company, and we've been having chats on and off with Emily and both Emily and Eric around EMPS. Do we ask just the one question? Do we ask multiple questions? What do we do? And you just said just then, about on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you put us on the scale of 1 to 10? And then you said, but why? You said the why. You said the second question, Arnie, and we've been told just ask the one question, but you said the second question. So my question to you is, have you asked, quote unquote, the second question why? And if so, or if not, why didn't you do it?
Well, there's 3 points of data we're pulling from this survey. One is, what's the average? What's the average morale of these 200 people across the company? And being ready to publish that. A lot of times people will say, well, I can't ask that question. I know what the answer will be. You probably have an issue. I'm just going to say it out there. But first, it's the number. Second one, and more importantly than the number, is the participation. What percentage of your team participated in the survey? If it's below 70% for us, we felt it was a failed survey. We still published it, but man, we wanted participation. I don't care if you put a 1 or a 10, but I need participation to be above 70%. Otherwise, I think it's a false flag. And then third is why. And the why is, it's, by the way, why was not required. We found that the answer to why, we got a lot of stuff from people who rated us 8, 9, and 10. They wanted to tell us why, because they learn just like our kids learn. If the things they reward us for giving them, they get more of, right? So our 8, 9s, and 10s would tell us what was going on good. Our 6 and 7s were sort of meh, and you didn't get a lot from them. But the 5s and below, and it doesn't take many 5s and below to kill your average, by the way. But the 5s and below, they usually had something to get off their chest or something they were concerned about. That was the good stuff. That was the nectar. That was finally someone's telling me what's pissing me off, right? And so we would require the answer for 4 or below under the concept of, I can't help you unless I know what's bothering you. And so by requiring that, we developed the habit of people that would give it. Now, we also noticed that we get some 5s because people just didn't want to tell us, but it gave us something to work on. The number of 5s told us how many people were really at a 3 but didn't want to tell us why. So everything's got a little moment there, but the why is for us was voluntary for 5 and above, but we still got a lot of cool stuff. But 4 or below, if I don't know why you're upset, I can't help.
Yeah, okay. We've got a bit of an issue though as well, where I don't know if it's a cultural thing or not, but we put out the MPS survey once a month, and the information comes back so we can discuss it in our leadership meeting. And there may be a fair few people that are putting in well below 5, but we never ever get, why am I pissed off? And it frustrates the hell out of us, because I want to, help me help you get into a better place with working here. I want you to be happy to come into the office every day. That's what I want. That's what I aspire for you.
Yeah.
And they'll be upset, but they will never, ever, ever say the reason why. They just say, "Oh, you're a 4 and screw you, and I'm off now." And it's anonymized as well, so I don't know who it is.
On the argument of whether you should do this or not, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing wrong. Try it and see what happens. Like find your way, just like you used to do when you went to a new town without GPS. Find your way. And
Arnie,
and
Marshall's got his hand up.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Arnie. I appreciate your time.
Go ahead.
Hey, Arnie, how are you?
Hey, man, good.
So, call those fives and below, or the nectar, as you referred to it as. So that's the good stuff to listen to, right? But shouldn't we also expect, what is the action that you believe or your recommendation that would help get that to a better place?
Well, what also gets published, and I may not have been clear about this, the number gets published, the percentage of participants gets published, their comment gets published, and our response gets published. We held ourselves accountable for creating a response to that comment that said, we don't understand, you're right, we were wrong, that is the policy, and we will take your comments under consideration. Something that allowed that person and the 10 other people that thought the same thing but didn't put it in the survey, by the way, to know we were listening. So that response then set the course for, and then we would leave those meetings with a, who, what, when, who's following up on this, what are we going to do about it, have we seen this before, what, there's got to be action taken, or we're wasting meeting time. That response tells that person, the entire team, that we're listening. And by the way, because this is the dark arts, what we did early and learned, oh my God, that was bad. And what I would totally warn people against is you cannot witch hunt. Like, oh, I know Susie said that. I know Susie said that, and I'm going to go talk to Susie. It's the end of life as you know it. If you start witch hunting people from this thing, consider. The reason I use the word nectar, it is the way we improve. We take the harsh feedback with friends, never alone, because it'll drive you crazy. And we figure out how to turn the problem into the opportunity. Solving those opportunities is the Charmin toilet paper that wins people over.
Thank you, Arnie. Always a pleasure.
All right. Can we throw Arnie's email address in here and his home phone number for everybody to have, just in case they need something?
I think it's on my website.
Oh,
and
that's
hey,
right.
If you can go to worthdoingwrong.com, and if you want to have more of this, you can hit Coffee with Arnie. And I'll do a virtual coffee with you, and we'll talk about your culture and the one thing we can do to make it a little bit better.